I need to tell you about the antique mirror I bought at an estate sale 3 weeks ago, because what I've been seeing in it has completely changed how I understand time and free will. My name is Alex Rivera. I'm 27 years old, and I live alone in a studio apartment in Philadelphia. The mirror started showing me a future version of my room about a week after I hung it up. Subtle changes at first that I thought were tricks of the light. But now I'm watching events unfold in that reflection days before they happen in real life, and I just witnessed something in there that's made me question whether I should even stay in this apartment. It all started because I'm obsessed with vintage furniture and spend most of my weekends hunting through estate sales and thrift stores. This particular sale was in Chestnut Hill, an old Victorian house being cleared out after the owner passed away with no living relatives. The mirror caught my eye immediately. A massive ornate piece about 6 feet tall with an elaborate brass frame covered in strange geometric engravings. The estate sale coordinator told me it had been in the family since the 1890s, brought over from somewhere in Eastern Europe, and nobody seemed particularly interested in it because of its size and weight. I got it for $60, which seemed like a steal for something that well-preserved and obviously antique. Getting it up the 3 flights to my apartment was a nightmare. But once I had it positioned against my bedroom wall opposite my bed, it looked perfect. The glass had this slight silvering around the edges that gave it character, and the engravings on the frame caught the light in interesting ways. For the first few days, it was just a normal mirror, showing exactly what you'd expect: my messy room, my bed, the plants on my windowsill. Then on day 6, I noticed something odd while getting ready for work. In the mirror's reflection, my bed was made, but when I turned around, it was still unmade exactly as I'd left it. I figured I was just tired, that my brain had glitched for a second, so I made my bed and went to work. But that evening when I came home, I glanced at the mirror before entering my room fully, and I saw myself sitting at my desk working on my laptop, even though I was still standing in the doorway. The moment I stepped fully into the room, the reflection corrected itself to show what was actually there. Over the next few days, I started testing it. I'd look in the mirror before turning around, and consistently, it showed my room about 3 to 5 hours ahead of the present moment. Books I hadn't moved yet would be in different positions. Lights that were off would be on. Even my cat Luna would be shown sleeping in spots she hadn't chosen yet. At first, I thought maybe I was losing my mind, so I started taking photos with my phone, documenting the discrepancies. The photos proved it. The mirror was definitely showing a future state of my room that would eventually match reality hours later. I tried researching the mirror's origins, tracking down the estate sale coordinator for more information about the family. She gave me the name of the deceased owner, Evelyn Kowalski, who'd been 93 when she passed. According to public records, her family had emigrated from Romania in 1889, and the mirror had been specifically mentioned in several generations of wills as a family heirloom never to be sold. Evelyn had no children, and her distant cousins who inherited the estate had apparently decided to ignore that stipulation and liquidate everything. I found an old interview in the Philadelphia Inquirer archives from 1985 where Evelyn had been asked about her family's history. She'd mentioned the mirror specifically, calling it a window that looks the wrong way through time, but the interviewer had clearly thought it was just an eccentric old woman being poetic. She'd said her grandmother had warned her never to act on what she saw in it, to let events unfold naturally, but she'd never explained why. The interview ended with her saying something that made my skin crawl. Some paths are set, some paths we choose. The mirror shows which is which. I became obsessed with watching the mirror, checking it every hour to see what my room would look like in the near future. Most of it was mundane, furniture in different positions, myself doing ordinary activities, Luna moving around. But I started noticing patterns, certain configurations that always preceded specific events. When the mirror showed my running shoes by the door, I always ended up going for a run within the next few hours. When it showed my laptop open to specific websites, I'd inevitably navigate to those sites later. The real test came when I decided to try changing what I saw. One evening, the mirror showed my room with the lights off and me presumably asleep in bed. Even though it was only 8 p.m., I decided I'd stay awake all night just to prove I could alter what the mirror predicted. I made coffee, put on a movie, and settled in with determination. But around 10 p.m. I got a massive headache, the kind that made it impossible to focus on anything. By 11, I was so exhausted I could barely keep my eyes open, and I finally gave in and went to bed, exactly as the mirror had shown. That's when I realized the mirror wasn't predicting the future. It was showing the inevitable future, the path events would take regardless of my intentions. I started testing smaller things, seeing myself with a blue shirt when I planned to wear red, and finding that I'd spill something on the red shirt and have to change. Seeing Luna's food bowl empty when I just filled it, then watching her knock it over within hours. Every attempt to deviate from what the mirror showed failed in ways that seemed almost intentional, like reality was course-correcting to match the reflection. This went on for 2 weeks, and I started to feel trapped by it. Knowing what was coming removed all spontaneity from my life. Every action felt predetermined and hollow. I considered getting rid of the mirror, but something kept me from doing it, maybe curiosity. Maybe the scientist in me wanting to understand the mechanism. Then last Thursday, I looked in the mirror at around 6 p.m. and saw something that made my blood turn to ice. The reflection showed my room in darkness, but there was someone else in it. A figure standing at the foot of my bed, just a dark silhouette that I couldn't make out clearly. My actual room was empty, and it was still daylight outside. But the mirror showed this scene that was clearly hours ahead, deep into the night. I grabbed my phone and took a photo of the mirror, my hands shaking so badly it came out slightly blurred, but the figure was clearly visible in the image. I immediately called my best friend Marcus and told him everything. The mirror, the future visions, the figure I'd just seen. He thought I was having some kind of breakdown at first, but when I sent him the photo, he went quiet. "Alex, that's really messed up," he finally said. "You need to get out of there right now. Come stay at my place." I told him I couldn't, that I needed to see if it was real, if someone was actually going to break into my apartment, or if this was something else entirely. Marcus came over anyway, arriving around 7 p.m. with a baseball bat and a determination to protect me from whatever was coming. We sat in my living area, both of us watching the mirror as the evening progressed. Around 8 p.m., the reflection started to change, showing the progression toward the dark scene I'd witnessed earlier. We watched as the mirror showed my room getting darker, the shadows lengthening, and finally showing complete darkness with that figure standing at the foot of my bed. "It's 9:47 p.m. now," Marcus said, checking his phone. "Whatever that is, it should be happening in real time soon based on your timeline estimates." We both stared at my actual room, which was brightly lit and completely empty except for us. The minutes ticked by, and nothing happened. No mysterious figure, no intruder, nothing. By 10:15, Marcus was starting to relax, suggesting maybe I'd finally broken the pattern, that my awareness of the prediction had changed the outcome. But I kept watching the mirror, and that's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The figure in the reflection was moving now, turning slowly, and as it turned toward the mirror, I started to recognize the posture, the build, the way it stood. "Marcus," I whispered, "I think that's me." As the figure in the mirror turned fully, I could make out features in the dim reflection, and it was definitely my face, but wrong somehow, older and hollowed out with an expression I'd never worn. The reflection me raised one hand and pressed it against the inside of the mirror, like it was trying to push through the glass. Marcus grabbed my arm and said, "Okay, we're leaving right now. This is way beyond weird," but I couldn't move, couldn't look away, because reflection me was mouthing something, trying to tell me something urgent. I moved closer to the mirror, trying to read the lips, and finally made out the words, "Don't trust the gift." Before I could process what that meant, the reflection changed again. The future me in the mirror suddenly looked panicked, turned towards something off-screen, and then the entire image went chaotic. I saw struggle, saw furniture overturning, saw my future self trying to fight off something I couldn't see. Then the reflection went completely black, not dark like nighttime, but black like the mirror had been covered or broken. Marcus was pulling at my arm, yelling that we needed to leave, but I was frozen, trying to understand what I'd just witnessed. That's when my phone rang, an unknown number. I answered it automatically, still in shock, and heard my own voice on the other end. "Alex, this is you from 6 days in the future," the voice said, and it sounded exhausted and terrified. "I know you just saw something in the mirror, and I need you to listen carefully because I only have a few seconds before the call disrupts the timeline too much." The voice explained that the mirror didn't just show the future, it connected to it, creating a feedback loop where different time streams could interact. "The gift I told you not to trust is the mirror itself," Future Me said. "It's not Romanian, it's not from 1890. It's from somewhere else, someone else, and it was planted at that estate sale specifically for you to find. Someone or something is using it to map stable time streams, and every person who looks into it becomes a fixed point they can manipulate." The call started breaking up, static filling the line. You need to destroy it tonight, right now, before it shows you anything else, because every vision makes you more locked into their predetermined path. The line went dead. Marcus and I stared at each other for a long moment, and then without discussing it, we both grabbed anything heavy we could find. I got a hammer from my toolkit, Marcus grabbed the baseball bat, and we approached the mirror together. In the reflection, we could see ourselves moving toward it, but the image was flickering now, showing multiple versions of us overlapping, like the timeline was fracturing from the paradox of me receiving the warning. I swung the hammer at the center of the mirror, and the glass shattered with a sound that was wrong, too deep and resonant, like breaking into a space that shouldn't exist. Behind the glass wasn't my wall but complete darkness, a void that seemed to move and breathe. Something reached out from that darkness, not a hand but something else, something that made my eyes hurt to look at directly. Marcus screamed, I scrambled backward, and then the entire mirror frame collapsed inward on itself, folding into impossible angles before vanishing completely with a sound like reverse thunder. Where the mirror had been, there was just a scorch mark on my wall in the exact shape of the frame. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Timeline corrected. You were never supposed to see this far forward. Recommend you stop buying antiques without provenance. I showed it to Marcus, and we both just started laughing. That hysterical laughter that comes from surviving something your brain can't fully process. We spent the rest of the night researching the estate sale, but found no record it had ever happened. No house in Chestnut Hill under that address, no Evelyn Kowalski in any database. The next morning, I found $60 in my wallet that I don't remember having. Exactly the amount I'd supposedly paid for the mirror. My bank statement showed no corresponding withdrawal. My photos of the mirror and its reflections were gone from my phone, replaced with generic shots of my room. Marcus remembered everything, which means it wasn't a hallucination. But nobody else I talked to about the mirror had any memory of seeing it in my apartment. It's like the timeline edited itself, removing the mirror from most people's memories, but leaving fragments for those of us who directly interacted with it. I've spent the last week processing what happened and researching temporal mechanics, parallel timelines, and entities that might exist outside normal spacetime. I haven't found answers, just more questions, but I keep thinking about what future me said about fixed points and predetermined paths. If something was using that mirror to map stable time streams, what were they planning to do with that information? And how many other people have been given these gifts that lock them into specific timelines? I still live in the same apartment, though I've moved my bed to where the mirror used to hang and spend too much time staring at that scorch mark. Sometimes late at night, I swear I can see it shimmer like there's still something there, some residual connection to that impossible void. Marcus thinks I should move, get away from anything connected to the incident. But I feel like I need to understand what happened, to figure out who or what is manipulating people's timelines and why they chose me specifically. The strangest part is that my life feels different now, more spontaneous and unpredictable in a way it hadn't before I got the mirror. It's like breaking it freed me from some predetermined path I'd been on without realizing it. Small things happen differently than I expect. Choices lead to genuine surprises, and I no longer feel that sense of inevitability that had been creeping into everything. Maybe I really was on some fixed timeline and destroying the mirror broke me free from it. Thanks for listening to this story about mirrors, timelines, and the danger of seeing too far ahead. If this tale of temporal manipulation and impossible voids made you think twice about buying antique mirrors, hit that like button and subscribe to Time Traveling Stories for more narratives that explore the thin line between past, present, and future. Drop a comment sharing any strange experiences you've had with mirrors or objects that seem to show you things they shouldn't. Don't forget that notification bell so you never miss our next journey into the stories that make you question whether your path through time is really your own.